Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer of jakestake.com, a pop culture entertainment news website. If you're listening to this on our audio platforms, please give it a 5-star review. Please download this episode and all the other episodes as well. I really appreciate it. My latest guest today has over 20 years of experience writing and directing film and television. He was a top 20 director on Project Greenlight and a top 50 director on the On the Lot TV series. His work has aired on Good Morning America and Dr. Phil, and he currently is the director of the 8-episode TV series Chaser, which can be found on Prime Video and on demand. Please help me welcome Daniel Roemer to the podcast.
That's me, welcoming myself.
Daniel, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It's just fun.
Awesome. So, Daniel, when did you get interested in filming, and how did that passion evolve into desire to pursue a career in the entertainment industry?
Strangely, sports got me into filmmaking. My first memory was when we were ice skating. I was about 4 years old in Ohio, and they used to flood the tennis courts with water and let the air freeze it in the winter. And my siblings and I would go skating, and my dad would film us with his old Super 8mm camera, and he'd take us back inside, and we would play the footage, except he reversed it on the screen, and it just blew my mind as a kid. I'm just like a toddler, and that was the first thing that was like, oh wow, you can manipulate life, you manipulate this reality through the way you film it.
That's incredible. It reminds me so much, because when I started, I always wanted to be with television when I was a kid as well, because way back back in the 90s, my parents created this box out of the television. They had 3 different sides on it. It was one side was Phil Donahue, the other side was Sally Jessy Raphael, the other side was Oprah, and then me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's just amazing what we can start them while they're young.
Yeah, for sure. Tap into before there's too much film school, tap into the creativity early on.
Absolutely. So speaking of filming, you had the opportunity to make it to the top 20 of Project Greenlight Best Director for 2 years in a row. And you were also a top 50 Best Director finalist when you competed on Steven Spielberg and Mark Burnett's On the Lot TV series. So what was your reaction when you reached these milestones, and how did you get involved with both shows?
That was a great time because it was still earlier on in my career. So I'm still developing confidence and just more of like an accurate point of view of what I have to offer. And it was nice to have sort of consistent affirmation in those ways. Goes into, I think it's a part of maturing as an artist. It goes into that, self-reflexive take that now when I'm going into things that, you kind of have a little bit more of a confidence, I guess. I think that was a very fertile time for filmmakers. They were really nurturing up and comers, and a lot of those filmmakers like Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Spielberg, they want to give back, and because all of them got a good break that helped them get in, and it was super cool to even be involved in any level.
I agree. And besides, the thing is, you have the opportunity to work with the teams that afford the biggest directors in film and television.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's what I've noticed is there's a shorthand, like when you work with, people who are very experienced or gifted and things like that, there's a shorthand where it's like a peaceful feeling. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but there's not a worry there. Oh, is this shot getting, are we getting this shot? you don't have to babysit it's like you're kind of just there. And it was really kind of exciting to be around some of these people I look up to.
That's awesome. So you've also had several opportunities, because I've done a lot of work with nonprofits, and and also worked with a lot of done a lot of people interviews with a lot of people. So you've worked throughout your career with numerous nonprofits and filmed interviews and promos with the likes of John Travolta, Meryl Streep, Ben Stiller, Selma Blair, and the late John Ritter and Olivia Newton-John. So do you have any memorable stories from your time filming on those activities?
I do have a few. What immediately jumps to mind is just a general sense that I think the celebrities who are very used to doing these red carpet events, and they get really pigeonholed almost into this kind of like star power role. And I think they really appreciate just someone talking to them like a human being, and just relating to them on that level. And that was kind of my point of view. I wasn't like I was trying to force that. It's naturally how I was. I wasn't really dazzled, I guess, by the star power type thing, and the whole fame, money, success that Hollywood likes to shine. I think for me, I was maybe a little bit more interested in the reality of, hey, these are real people, real artists that are excellent and brilliant at what they do. So I had like a few conversations with them that were very not normal, I would say. I don't know how in depth I would want to go on that, but like Christian Slater and I one time had like a really funny conversation about something, and then I would have to say that Ben Stiller was probably like the coolest guy. These are like interview scenarios, so I got to do an extended interview with Ben Stiller, and man, it was just fun. I don't know, I just felt like hanging out, even though it was sort of an interview. It was just kind of like hanging out. And I actually had a friend there to run the B-roll on it on the side too, which was kind of fun.
That's pretty cool that you had those experiences, and I bet you're going to take those stories away and like go to one of these days share those stories, unless you got NDAs.
Yeah, I mean they're not like I don't know, like, yeah, it's I don't want to turn this into like a gossip column, I guess. But yeah,
I don't
all those
blame you
people were,
either, Daniel. I don't blame you either.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, this was in a scenario where a lot of these the celebrities, they want, they make a lot of money, and they want to give back. And I got to be in sort of charities events and things like that.
And that's incredible. That's incredible. So one of so as we continue throughout our careers, especially in our industry, I think the entertainment industry is probably the most competitive industry in the performing arts section. So what have been some of the challenges that you face staying in our industry, and how have you overcome those obstacles?
The biggest challenge has got to be budget, because a lot of art forms like painting or music or things like that, you could do at a lot more, sometimes zero budget, sometimes a lot cheaper. But since film and television is such a huge collaborative art form, you know, music is just one of myriads of things that goes into making a film. So, you just add all of those up, and in the end, that's how you get these astronomical numbers, 40, $50 million, for a Netflix film, that's 90 minutes or something. Um, go even further with like a big action film or something like that. So yeah, in order to do your art, you have to really have a lot of money, and that's hard, man. That's difficult. And yeah, I would think that, would be the biggest hurdle for most filmmakers.
And I don't blame you either, Daniel. I don't blame you either. 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 I don't I definitely agree, because the thing is, it's not just film that you're paying for. You're paying for the equipment. You're paying for all of your employees. You're paying the actors, even the actors too, and even catering and the makeup. There's a lot of money that's involved.
Yeah, and food and lodging, people don't even think about that, but oftentimes that's some of the biggest, if not the biggest cost on production. You know, especially when you're flying people in from different places across the country or the world. Um, Man, yeah, and you don't necessarily see the direct result of that on the screen. It's not like a big visual effect. You're like, oh, the Death Star blew up. That must have cost $3 million. Or it's like, oh, we put up 13 actors in the Ritz-Carlton. There goes 4 million, or however much it's going to cost, Um,
Yeah, it's definitely tough as well, because the thing is, like you said, there's also stuff going on, like for example, when you go lose film, or like when when an actor is sick or something, and you have to have stand-ins. So you have to think on your feet.
yeah, the thing about filmmaking is it's a combo of extremes. So you have to be very, very prepared, but then at the same time, instantly ready to pivot and be an improvisational thinker. So it's very similar to sports. Like, think about someone like Michael Jordan, or some of the, LeBron, or some of these best players. They practice day in and day out, just grinding, to the point of where it's just like second nature. But you get in a game and you never really know what's going to happen moment to moment. So it all goes together. And then, I think some people have a hard time doing both. Like, they're like, oh, if it doesn't go exactly to the schedule, then they get all unraveled. Um, or some people are on the far vice versa of that. So I think that's definitely a trait that you might have naturally, or you could learn to get better when you're wanting to become a filmmaker.
I also have to say, it's the same thing when it comes to podcasting as well, like, or writing blogs. It's basically like, the more time you put in, the more guests you get, and the ability you get to grow as a producer, or like you grow as an interviewer.
Yeah, human humans are very differently. Their signals writing is much more maybe controlled and logical part of your brain, but when you're on set, you're now combining that like pre-plan with like what is actually happening, and a lot of times it feels like you're like 3 steps ahead of a train that's like bearing down on you. Sun's going down, like you said, the actor didn't show up, like, okay, all of a sudden we have all these other variables. How are we going to make this happen? And it's a certain form of intelligence. And people, even like people in high level like military positions and things like that, they have to know how to do that too, because they've had all this training. But then when the real thing happens, they got to figure out how to pivot and work with what actually happens.
Totally agree. So let's talk about Chaser, the series. So congratulations on the show, and can you describe this production and this show to my audience?
So the show is about a video editor who discovers the power to re-edit the last 24 hours. So he's got this girl that he's trying to go for and he's in love with, and she doesn't even know he exists, but he discovers this power and he's like, oh man, I can now go back and re-edit life. And so he's going to, make her fall in love with him. So that's kind of the germ of the story. But there's all these ripple effects that start happening. And by the end of the series, it's like, the world is falling apart. So it really expands from the first episode to the 8th episode. So if you're the first episode, I definitely watch that, but keep in mind as you watch it, it snowballs and it snowballs and it's quite fun.
When I spoke with Russ a couple of weeks ago when he visited the podcast, he said that we both of us agreed it was like a combination of you had the monkey's paw going on at the same time as the butterfly effect.
Yeah, I don't. That's interesting. I never heard that before. I definitely heard the butterfly effect. I would say style-wise, it's definitely got some Black Mirror influences, Donnie Darko. There's a lot of references to Kubrick in it, and those are all filmmakers that I love. But yeah, I don't know. I think this one is like a combo of it's very style heavy, but there's also a lot of character stuff in it. So it's a good combination series. Some series are like 100% character and the style is like almost negligible. But this one I think kind of half and half. And then also is like, what if you could redo the last day?
I totally agree. So Chaser has been nominated and won numerous awards at several international film and television festivals. So what does it mean to have your show achieve these accolades?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I know what it means. It's nice because you put so much work into it. You always put more work into it than you ever receive accolades. Like it doesn't really ever match up, which is fine. That's not really why you do it. But it's nice to be in an audience, especially when there's comedic moments and you hear the laugh and things like that. It makes things feel a little bit more worthwhile. The blood, sweat, and tears you put into it. Yeah, I don't know. It just it seems like the European sensibility is liking it quite a bit, which is cool. I'm over here in the UK for now, and it seems to be going over here well, and the US both. So, yeah.
As I remember that we were talking about it before we got on about my mutual love of London. And what have you had the opportunity to film anything in the UK? And if it is it similar? Is the filming experience similar or different than filming in the US?
I have had a chance to film some stuff here. I would say the main difference is there's two things. One is just certain things are just called different things. So like instead of like scouting a location, they call it recce, or instead of a DP, director of photography, it's DOP. So it's just all these little things. And then also on the set, so for whatever reason, the AAD, assistant director, is calling action, which I find very disturbing because a lot of times the way you say action affects the actors. You have someone going action, and then all of a sudden the actors feel like they got to act, but you have some directors, they barely even say action, or they don't even say it at all. They're just like, off we go. So I actually had to correct that on one of these sets where someone was an AD was calling action. I was like, actually, I'm from America, I'm the director, so I'll say action. They were cool. So that's the main thing. And then the second thing I would say, in general, at least in London, there's less of I don't know if I would call it maybe shallow approach, but they seem to value a little bit more the artistic side of making films, rather than just the bottom dollar, which is, how much is it making on, box office, or views that it's getting on Netflix or whatever. Feels a little bit more centered in that way.
And I definitely agree with you. That sounds very interesting that there's different terminology, but also, and especially with the director versus assistant director calling out. But like the thing is it more? Did you sense more of a camaraderie in these productions? Because you hear a lot more, especially when I've listened to podcasts with actors come on and they talk about camaraderie on the set. Is there a lot more camaraderie on UK sets versus American sets?
To be honest, I don't know if I've done enough yet in the UK to give you a good answer on that, because I've certainly felt real big camaraderie on United States productions, just to where it's like, how did I never even know who these people were? Like now we're like best friends forever just from shooting a month or two, So yeah, I don't think that necessarily is the case. I think you just bond. It's just like anything. Like when you go through something tough or something, it's like a roller coaster. When you get off a roller coaster, whoever you went on it with, you're their friend now. So.
Absolutely. So we got to start writing down our conversation. So Daniel, what are your thoughts on social media and how have you used it to promote your work?
I like social media. I'm sure you can go down rabbit holes and lose hours out of your day on it. But, if we had that stuff available when I was younger, I would have been making all kinds of comedic TikTok videos with my friends and things like that. We did that with our old VHS and high 8 cameras, but it was so hard to do because, well, sometimes you would have to like borrow one from like a video, like audio video store or something. So in that sense, like, I feel almost like I missed out on some stuff. But this is like the first project where we're heavily investing in more social media marketing, and we have a social media marketing person who's doing a fantastic job, and it's really fun to see how that goes. Her name's Alexa, and she's just crushing it. So it's definitely not the world I know how to do. I will make a film or TV and know everything down to the frame, but I will not claim to know hardly anything about the social media marketing world. But I do appreciate it.
I totally agree. Social media I agree with you on the rabbit hole, especially because I find myself going on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube rabbit holes. But however, I think social media I always say to people, social media is a must, especially when it comes to promoting your work.
For sure. Yeah. Cause like the worst is like when you put like your soul into something and then no one even knows it's out there. So you really have to reserve effort in getting it out. But if those aren't your skill sets, then you have to find someone that does. So, man, it's just most filmmakers I don't think are the best at selling themselves. It's like a different part of your brain. So if you can find someone that's good, then you're just like golden.
Absolutely. So last question, are you ready?
Yep.
All right, Daniel, where can my audience find Chaser, the series, and also where can connect with you on social media?
So Chaser is available to stream on Amazon Prime. If you go on Amazon and you type in Chaser, you'll find it. And you can find me on Instagram. My handle is at DF Roemer, like Daniel Frederick Roemer, DF Roemer. And then the series Instagram is at Zero Gravity Media Films with an S at the end. And you'll find all the information there. It has links to everything there, so you don't have to worry about not clicking the right thing and all that.
All righty, so guys, if you missed an episode of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast, visit our channels on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Podchaser, Spotify, and Spreaker. Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. Now, are you on social media? Because I'm on social media too. Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. And guys, if you want to find my previous interview with Russ Russo, who stars in Chase Circus series, if you want to find out who won The Masked Singer and what's going on with season 19 of America's Got Talent, visit jakes-shake.com. Once again, jakes-shake.com. Daniel, thank you so much for taking time in your schedule to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
Definitely. This was very fun. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. And guys, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, have a great one, everybody. Goodbye.